General Partnerships and Capacity Development at IITA. Please welcome, sir. Mr. Jite Okoloko. Olajite Paul Okoloko, actually Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of Notori Chemical Industries Limited. Mr. Jiman Anurag, Managing Director, Allied Atlantic Distilleries Limited. Ms. Atsuko Toda, Country Director, International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD. Of course, Pastor Shegun Adeomi, Chairman, Nigerian Cassava Growers Association. And ladies and gentlemen, for this discussion, your moderator will be Mrs. Ndidi Wuneli, MD, ACE, or is that AACE Foods, also Director of Sahel Capital Partners, Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum, and of course, member of the Federal Republic. You're welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Governor and his distinguished First Lady, it's a pleasure to moderate this very distinguished panel. Dr. Yumkela doesn't need much of an introduction in Nigeria. I would say he's one of our brothers. He's from Sierra Leone, but he was a UNIDO Director General. In 2000-2001, I met him, and I saw his passion for Nigeria. He actually worked in Nigeria at that time, and we call him a Nigerian. So please welcome back Dr. Yumkela. He's extremely passionate about agriculture and has devoted his life to promoting SMEs. And I'm sure he has a lot of insights to share with us this afternoon.
Excellency, Governor, all protocols observed. Indeed, I am the Saro man that likes to talk about Nigeria too much. Coming back to Ogun State brings many memories for me. First of all, as a young trade minister, very naive and ignorant coming from academia, one of the first challenges I had, I was invited to an economic forum here back in 1995, again to Ogun State. So I kind of started touching policy here in Ogun State. Second, I see His Excellency Chief Shonukan. When I joined the UN, my first 6 months, Chief Shonukan was made chairman of Vision 2020. And suddenly I said, I have an opportunity here to change my favorite country. So I came here to invite Chief Shonukan to come to Vienna. And he was having this big consultation around the country. They were in Hilton Hotel, and they went to him, gave him my card. There's this young man from Europe who says he must see you. He has a letter. So the great man said, okay, allow him to come in. He said, so what do you need from me? I said, I need to take you to Vienna, sir. Because Nigeria's 2020 vision must be anchored on industrialization, but particularly agro-led industrialization. And I got his attention. And so for sure he came to Vienna. And so it's been a 20-year journey, me coming back and forth to Nigeria. I save you the slides, no slides from me. But they will put up the website where we've done a book with some Nigerian authors, international authors, almost 20 of us, on agribusiness for Africa's prosperity. We talk about 7 pillars, and all of that has been covered over the last 2 days, but I'll just list them quickly, and I'll focus on only 2. For agribusiness to take off in Africa, you need 7 pillars plus 1, and I deliberately say plus 1. Number 1, we must enhance agricultural productivity. Number 2, upgrade value chains. Number 3, exploit local, regional, and international demand. Number 4, strengthening technological effort and innovation. Number 5, innovative financing. Number 6, stimulating private participation. Number 7, improving infrastructure and energy. And number 8, institutional support, meaning capacity building, skills formation, and so on. Change my mind, I pick 3. First one, agricultural productivity enhancement. The only way we can enhance agribusiness here, one of the key ways, is to enhance productivity. And you need 4 elements. That's what they did in Asia with Green Revolution. India does not have famine anymore because they did some things right 40 years ago. 4 technologies combined as a bundle. High yield varieties, chemical fertilizer, irrigation, mechanization. Of course, all of those combined with services, extension, institutional support, and the other pillars I mentioned. You have a good panel here. I was a student at IITA. They've done well on cassava. They can do a whole lot on maize. Let me give you some numbers for Africa. If you take maize, cereal yield, over the last 40 years, we've had only 29% increase in yields. In Asia, 177% increase in yields. In Latin America, 144%. So yes, you need IITA to work with you on yield improvements. But yesterday, Chief Ogbe gave some good numbers about maize, in fact, here. You're talking 2 to 5 tons here per hectare, and he said in Zimbabwe, maybe it's 10, 20. So he gave you numbers. But he also talked about milk production, 10 bottles in East Africa, 1 bottle here, and of course 40 liters in Europe. So enhancing productivity is crucial. But you have a panel of experts that will go into that. Fertilizer use. Africa, 12.5 kilograms per hectare. The global average, 102 kilograms per hectare. Latin America, 89.6. South Asia, 106. But Nigeria is the gas country that happens to have oil. Why should you import fertilizer? Value addition. You must include fertilizer production. But I was told my brother is an expert on that. He will cover the details. So I gave you 4 technologies combined with services, and I've just elaborated a little bit on the ag productivity side. Second, small and medium enterprises. You know, in India, I just been in conferences now, 4 days on energy, gas and oil. So I remember this number on India. 29 million small and medium enterprises, accounting for 45% of manufacturing output and about 40% of exports. One thing I know about my brothers and sisters in Nigeria, they're entrepreneurs. If you want to know that a country is free and open and doing business, when we travel around the world, whether it's Thailand, Hong Kong, everywhere, I look for the Nigerian corner. They're always trading. I remember, as Ndidi said, remember I worked here 3 years, driving sometimes from Lagos to Aba and also Onitsha and in Abia State, all of these places. Myself, pushing for supporting SME cluster development here. What is my point? There are millions of small operators, millions of them. In fact, some people estimated that $20 billion or more per year goes through your SME sector. These are millions of entrepreneurs getting ready to get into your food and agribusiness supply chain. How do we support them? It's going to be a big issue, but in Didi and others, we've all worked together on those issues. So introducing, which was my 6th point, stimulating private participation in that, of course, financing, a lot of what you've said, infrastructure, cost of doing business, and so on. Number 3, gender. You know, when I was a young PhD student in the United States, we had a presentation and somebody came in there, a very arrogant young African man, and they showed numbers of the role of women in agriculture. Of course, I was shocked. You know, for food processing in Africa, 80 to 90% is done by women. So, Governor, you can't talk about agribusiness development here. Go to the markets. Who is really doing the heavy duty? It's the women. So about the role of women in this space. Once I was in Denmark and they were talking about all these gender issues. And it was all the negatives and barriers. So I stood up. I said, wait a minute, guys. Why don't you look at West Africa? We have a positive. Our women are natural entrepreneurs. Talk to me about how we strengthen them to even be better entrepreneurs. Governor, that's the challenge you and others face in Nigeria. If you want to change agribusiness, look at the women as well. Their technologies, their financing, their rights to property. All of those are packets. I didn't hear anything about gender for 2 days. So women, I'm not trying to campaign for you. I'm just telling your men the reality. That's the end of my agriculture side, but let me talk about some of the other things. Today, I work in the energy space. In fact, I tell people, remember, I'm an agricultural economist who found himself as Director General of an industrial development agency, who now finds himself promoting energy systems around the world. Yeah, for the Secretary General. Part part of that is influenced by Nigeria. One of the things that bothered me working here, 2000 to 2003, the cost of energy to manufacturing industries. Lafarge said it correctly this morning. 1/5 of their operating cost, energy. And many people mentioned it. Today, I lead those issues for Africa. Africa has 600 million energy poor. Your great country cannot even guarantee us 24 hours of uninterrupted energy. You cannot imagine the cost of that to manufacturing here. And who will come and build bigger factories if in fact 20 to 30% of their cost is energy? Why do I say that here? Industrialization, whether for agribusiness or something else, amongst all the other infrastructure issues you have to deal with, Nigeria, build on your comparative advantage of being a cheap energy country. You must, you have about 4,000 megawatts today. You need 40,000 megawatts. You're burning gas, billions of dollars. I'm leading a group here to deal with zero flaring of gas. I didn't know when I started doing that here 2001 in Nigeria, that 13 years later, I'll be asked to lead those issues for the world. But I tell you, it is wrong. I learned, by the way, last week I was in Moscow with Prime Minister Medvedev and his group in the International Energy Forum, keynoting for the oil and gas group. Nigeria has 170 trillion cubic feet of gas. The gas country that happens to have oil. You know what other nations are doing with their cheap energy? Let me give you 2 examples. Iceland. Iceland is one of the biggest producers of aluminum. You feel say they get bauxite? They now get better. People ship it in all the way north. You know why? Cheap geothermal energy. Nigeria. You deflare the gas for 50 years. There should be pipelines coming to your factories even more to make energy costs cheap. You go beat everybody competitively. So you must include that. Second, decentralized distributive power. Do you know globally 4.3 million premature deaths every year due to household air pollution? That charcoal, firewood we use here, it kill we Pikinde and women. In Africa, 800,000 deaths. 4.3 million is double HIV, AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis combined. Guess what? You're cutting all the trees down. So very soon, you'll have water problems. Very soon, this agribusiness base you think you have, it not go exist. You should check. I have seen some of the studies on charcoal use in your own country. It's killing people, but it should not happen. So my job now is to promote energy access, universal access to energy, energy efficiency, all those new building projects, they must be energy efficient. Do you know that for SMEs, the cost is sometimes 40% of their production costs? One of the things that bothered me also, when I go to Aba, you know, I used to walk through the slums. You see these entrepreneur people sitting, 40 employees, light no day. Light no day. Say, Oga, why you not fire them? He said, well, I have to train new people, but I get for pay them so they go stay 3 days. There was an industrialist in eastern Nigeria. They made me go to his house. In those days, apparently in the 70s, he was the biggest in this Enugu, Anambra area. I walked in, the old man looked at me with all my Harvard, PhD and everything. He said, so what do you know about manufacturing? I said, not much, sir. He said, do you see this light? It is supposed to be white. It is yellow. You know why, my boy? The energy is low. He said, I spend 70% of my time chasing tankers for energy. I know the same in Lagos. World Bank and I did studies on those. So in closing, Governor, you have a vision. But Unilever guy said it the best way yesterday. The problem in Africa is not about plans and visions. It is the consistency, dedication of implementation. He said execution, execution, execution. But the other one is political risk. The finance guys talked about it a little bit. People are worried. If you're going to invest in a housing estate, agribusiness, you know one way governor come on, another governor come, he change policy. The loan was taken for 20 years. Governor don't come on, another one come, he change policy. I can't run back to the bank. So in banking, as I deal with energy systems now, because we're talking big finance, the bankers tell you, Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs, we want TLC in policy, not tender loving care. Transparency, longevity, credibility. That policy was not designed to please one man. That policy was designed to unleash entrepreneurship for everybody so they can create jobs and prosperity. My last 2 points, and indeed I'll go sit down. Everybody said it. As they say in Nigeria, by the grace of God, you are right next to Lagos. You know, as a young professor at Michigan State, I wrote maybe 20 policy briefs on the advantages to Michigan community and farmers of the North American Free Trade Agreement that Vincente Fox was talking about yesterday. Yeah? As he said yesterday, they were lucky they're right next to America. Come on, Ogun State. You're right next to hungry Lagos. 15 million people. The projection is 30 million Lagosians in 25 years. Governor, you should feed them. You should clothe them. And if they want, you house them too. So, Governor, my hope is you and the governor of Lagos invite me because I'm talking about strategic alliance. Help your brother understand that, look, this is not about Ogun State. It's the two of us. We should have railway lines taking those products from Lagos port here within 24 hours. Sometimes when I was working here, the container, they sit for port for 1 week. Your competitor in Malaysia, he don't import, he don't produce, he ship them back to Nigeria. You still they wait for clear. So you need transit lines. The highway coming here. When I was a student at IITA, the highway here was 4 lane. Governor, if it be 6 lane, each time those trucks wait along that way, is productivity lost. You can't compete with Malaysia. They will buy your cocoa, make chocolate, sell them back to you. And my last story. Indomie. Doyin and others in Lagos Business School taught me this when I was working here back in 2000. They say when Indomie came here, Nigerians say, nobody know they make Nigerian man live Eba. Na lie. Indomie came here. They knew that your population was urbanizing. They knew that the youth wanted something different. Then they mint money every day. But the part of the story is the following. I didn't know. My child liked Indomie a lot. My daughter. Guess what? She's going to be married to a Yoruba man very soon.
Thank you, Dr. Yumkela. I told you he was one of us, right? Please give him another round of applause. I think he shared some very, very useful insights with us this afternoon about the importance of productivity, innovation, the pivotal role that power and energy plays, the roles of SMEs, and of course, the importance of women in agriculture. And I know the First Lady has been leading a lot of efforts to support women in agriculture in Ogun State. So she was smiling when you were speaking because you were speaking her language. You've really laid a fantastic foundation, and we value your passion. And we know we're watching this space because greater things will come out of this man. Please give him another round of applause. So we have a distinguished panel which have been carefully selected. And I'm going to take the questions along the value chain. And when you think about the agricultural value chain, you have to start with research. And IITA has been a pioneer in research for the last 50 years. They've developed phenomenal breeds of different products, great ideas around how to grow and increase yields. But the biggest challenge is how that research trickles down into society. Because here IITA is sitting in Ibadan, and yet we have some of the lowest yields in the world in Nigeria. What is limiting this great work from trickling to the lives of smallholder farmers, and what is limiting adoption?
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Governor, First Lady, all protocol observed. Very challenging question, very, very challenging, and it's true. You are absolutely correct. For the past 45 years, research institutes in Nigeria in partnership with IITA have been developing all kinds of wonderful technologies that easily take the current yields that our small farmers have in Nigeria, and I would say on all crops. They easily triple them, quadruple them. In some cases, we can increase yields tenfold. But you're exactly right. Most of our small-scale farmers are not implementing those technologies right now. And there are a lot of challenges, and I don't want to list all of them. That would be so boring, we would all go to sleep very fast. But the future is bright. And especially when I got here and I read the pamphlet that we are all given, the plan that I have seen here in Ogun State for agriculture is absolutely fantastic. And I want to congratulate Ogun State for that. I think your Ministry of Agriculture must be working very hard. They have a very clear vision. And as we've heard from so many speakers already, execution and implementation is the key. And for small-scale farmers and for farmers all over the world, that is what it is all about. It is knowledge put into practice. And the struggle is that even today, many of our farmers, they have the knowledge. They know exactly what they need to get these high yields. But they're struggling because of other obstacles. Credit would be one. Another one would be access to these inputs that we've already heard about. We need to have fertilizer. We need to have the seeds of the best varieties. Even though the research institutes have developed them, if they're not available, then it's not going to help. So what is being done? Well, first of all, I'm pleased to report that IITA has actually done a big change in the last 2 to 3 years. And that is, we have decided that we have to put a lot more emphasis on our partnerships with those organizations that will be delivering these products to the farmers. So we are partnering very closely with a lot of private industries to help them and to work with them to deliver the technologies to the farmers. And yes, we are working closely with the federal government and some of the state governments here in Nigeria to deliver those technologies. We have a long way to go, and we all need to work together on this. I just want to say that IITA is definitely committed to work here in Ogun State, and we look forward to partnering with you in this exciting time of developing agriculture and increasing the yields of small-scale farmers in Ogun State. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kenson. I'm going to come back to you because clearly I think there's a lot more work that IITA can do to push out the great varieties. I just visited IITA last week and I saw the great work you're doing in cassava. And I know that we have the chair of the Cassava Growers Association here. So you've come up with yields that can be transferred rapidly. What is limiting you from partnering with private sector breeders, for example, to reach millions of farmers with those yields? Just name one thing that's limiting that adoption and that spread.
That's limiting our
ability to scale up the introduction of varieties. Let's use cassava as an example.
In fact, I would say that nothing is limiting us. That is actually going very, very well now because of the very big program the federal government has with cassava. We are multiplying cassava varieties massively, and they're really moving fast.
Okay, all right, great. Now I'm moving to Jite. So from research, we move to inputs. And Dr. Yumkela has already told us about the challenges around fertilizer usage in our country, as well as improved seeds. Single digits. When you compare it to Asia, for example, I think some statistics say 6 to 7% of our farmers use improved seed. Maybe 10% of our farmers now use fertilizer. What is Notori doing to ensure that more smallholder farmers have access to these seeds? And how are you partnering with the private sector and the government to scale up your initiatives?
Hello? Yeah. First of all, I want to say it's a pleasure to be here in this important event. And I think we see Ogun State as one of the major drivers today that can help us achieve should I say, sustainable productivity in the agricultural sector. Notori has a vision, and that is to improve not just the quality of lives, but also to ensure that a green revolution is achieved in Nigeria. One of the most important factors in achieving a green revolution is actually making sure that you have good quality, affordable inputs available. Now, before we started, it was the only way you could have fertilizers in the country was through the government procurement system. We all know that prior to 2006 or 2007, that system really never worked. You know, subsidies was in place, middlemen stripped the subsidies, farmers only received recycled products in the market, very poor quality products in the market. A farmer buys a bag of fertilizers, it's supposed to be a 50-kilogram bag, he weighs it, it's probably about 40. So traders actually stole from farmers. When Notori came into place in Nigeria, our goal was to make sure that we could make fertilizers and also improve seed now accessible, affordable, and available across the entire country. So we developed and built very strong channels into the market, making sure that at different levels, and we're talking about very controlled channels, fertilizers would leave the plant, go through dedicated transporters to our distributors across the country. From our distributors, we'll go to our retailers across the country, even all the way down to what we call our village promoters, who are your private sector extension services workers, working together with farmers to ensure that farmers can understand the impact of fertilizers and improved seed on their yields. Prior to prior to the early 70s, if you take Southern Asia, had the same production profile, fertilizer or input utilization profile as Sub-Saharan Africa. But of course, the Green Revolution took off in Asia when farmers began to understand or switch to a commercial mindset and knowing the impact of improved seeds and fertilizer and the correlation with their yields. That created the Green Revolution, and we saw that inflection point take place. Nigeria, Notori is actually building on the same model, making sure that fertilizers and seed can reach the farmers. Across the country today, we have, over 1,500 farm projects on 1/8 of a hectare of land. We're split into two. Farmers use their traditional practice on one half and use the Notori best practice on the other half. And at the same time, farmers can then compare the yields and then see how, just by using fertilizers and seed, their yields can go up tenfold. So that's a very, very strong practical example that we have done. And today we've reached over 3 million farmers, even with different types of fertilizers, in terms of not just the 50-kilogram bags, but farmers who can't afford 50-kilogram bags are now using Notori's 1-kilogram bags. And farmers who can actually use 1-kilogram bags and see the impact of that then graduate to 10-kilogram bags. But one thing I must mention is that Notori has actually worked on specific projects in specific areas to ensure we can improve yields. But one of the biggest challenges we see is, for instance, what happened in Jos in 2009 by introducing 1-kilogram bags to farmers. We saw the level of cabbage output increase like tenfold in the States. Unfortunately, the value chains are broken. Farmers, we are experiencing over 40% post-harvest losses in Nigeria, which is generally a characteristic of, should I say, in Sub-Saharan Africa. We saw the price of cabbage, a bag of cabbage, drop by over 300%. So if the value chains are broken, if you cannot produce or if you increase yields and cannot ultimately get these yields into structured markets, then we do have a problem. So I think these are some of the challenges that we're looking at, and Notori is trying to provide a total solution to the farmer, making sure he has seed and fertilizers, using proper channels that allow fertilizers and seed be available or within the reach of the farmer. If a farmer can, in the very villages, buy a pack of cigarettes, he should be able to buy a bag of fertilizers or a bag of seeds. So that is what we're doing to ensure that we can help have a green revolution in Nigeria.
Thank you, Jite. Thank you very much. And while you were speaking, one of our world-renowned farmers walked in. Baba, welcome. We're happy to have you with our midst. So I move swiftly along. We've heard about research and we've heard about the importance of inputs and what Notori is doing with seeds and fertilizer. So let's hear from a smallholder farmer, or the representation of smallholder farmers in our midst. Pastor Adewumi, what are you seeing as the limiting factor for smallholder farmers in adopting the fertilizer, the improved seed, or even the great research? Are farmers adopting these new technologies? Are they embracing it? Do they have access to financing to actually purchase the fertilizer? What do you see is happening in your space?
Yes, I will speak generally about the constraints that we have from translating this dream of the government. In the first place, the farmers in the past have not been united. From the time of our father, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who is happily with us, he passionately promoted this cassava. And I happened to be the head of the technical crew at that time. So, but because the off-takers of the cassava flour were not prepared to take it, they went round, until on the long run, they said, okay, they gave us 500 million naira, and that sealed the mouth of everything. But what actually happened is that we were unable to grow enough cassava to meet the need. So he actually made us to go to the minister Adamu then, and we set up July date. But we were not able to get enough cassava. So, and in order for those people to show that they are being loyal, they just gave us 400 million, and that's still it. But right now, the situation has changed. From cassava to the primary production to manufacturing, to processing, we have the groups that failed the manufacturing sector. So the manufacturing sector, when you even come to them, to talk to them, they have the hangover of the failure they have had. So they are not taking advantage of the present setting. Two, the processors themselves, they used to have a cartel of people within their system, the purchasing department. The purchasing department does not want the situation to change because they are getting advantage from going into the field to buy. So if you come to the factory to introduce a better system to them, the purchasing department will frustrate you. So we also have the policy that changes from time to time, which we have spoken about. But you see, I would rather think of the solution that is readily available now. There is no way you can use peasant or smallholder farmer who has no access to mechanization to promote what will be used in the industry. I'll give you an example. It has been cited yesterday that while an average farmer will get 11 tons from an hectare, the Zimbabwe farmer in the Ilorin, they confirm that they're able to get 50 tons. You will see that even the cost of their production may be less than what is available to the small farmers. So there's no way you can compete in the world market with these people. So what we actually need to do is to fill the gap. And luckily, the present regime, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, is making it available. We are able to convince him that we need a clear land, mechanizable land. And right in Ogun State now, they are doing 500 hectares. Now let me talk about Ogun State. The flour, the processing industry in Nigeria is 80% in Ogun State. That of flour especially is about 80% in Ogun State. So now that we have access to some fund, which is Cassava Flour Fund, we are thinking of using that to advantage Ogun State and bring it here. But the Ogun State need to show some kind of a cooperation in land clearing. That's exactly what we need. We don't need any other thing. When the mechanizable land is there, other things will follow. Right now in Kogi State, one of the biggest company in the world, Kagil, has come, and they are clearing 25,000 hectares. What we need from Ogun State now is just for the state government to clear 1,000 hectares. We will bring the federal government to complete the remaining 4,000. I will explain myself. In Ekagro, which is Moribo now, it has capacity to mill 400 tons a day. It's not milling 1 ton because the cassava is not available. The distillers in Ota, they can mill as much as 280, I'm told, in a day. But I don't think they have that. The Ososa can mill 216 a day. They don't have it. Now, all you need for this is just about 5,000 hectares. 5,000 hectares, we are ready to provide all the funding for cultivation. But let them, give us the counterpart of maybe 1,000 hectares. We get the federal government to bring the 4,000 hectares. It can be achieved within 3 months.
Okay.
Somebody said something yesterday. He said, we are never short of ideas. But when it comes to implementation, is where we have problems. Now, take it out of the bureaucracy of the government line. Let it have its own unit. We have the fund right now. The fund is with us, 29,500 hectares to give to the state. Out of we are going to give 5,000 to the state government, and the problem of lack of cassava will be solved.
Okay.
So yeah.
Pastor, you've raised the issue of land and the government's role in clearing the land. But there are many other ways we've heard of increasing yields, using the right varieties, fertilizer, and then access to land. Yeah.
You cannot do that on the sky.
Okay.
You can do it when you have the land.
So I think your point is very clear.
Yeah, when the land is there, we have access to every other thing.
Okay.
We are going to drive it.
Fantastic.
And it will work.
Fantastic. So I appreciate your passion, and you've put out an idea here, and the governor has heard, I'm sure. Yes. So moving right along, you talked about the shortage of cassava, and we have a distillery that's actually producing ethanol from cassava. So we're going to hear from Mr. Anurang about your experience as an agribusiness, sourcing cassava locally and then processing it into ethanol. What are the key challenges you're facing, and what role can public-private partnerships play in unleashing the success of your business?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. First, I would like to thank Ogun State Government to make us part of this conference. And I'm going through this conference. Really, it's a very good conference, and such a thing should have happened every year and all that. It's a good steps from the Ogun State Government. We, as an Allied Atlantic Distillery, we started our project. Actually, we started thinking of this project somewhere in 2000. We saw the world market, and world market, when we saw that a lot of ethanol started going into the fuel ethanol side. And Nigeria, till last year, even was importing all its ethanol from other countries. There was not a single drop being produced in Nigeria of the ethanol. Then we saw that, yes, a lot of ethanol is going towards the fuel ethanol and all that. Naturally, there is going to be a lot of scarcity of the ethanol for the portable purposes, and the prices will start going up, and then there will be challenges for the industry, because we are basically an alcohol beverages company. So we thought of going into the backward integration, and we started this activity right from, say, 2005, when we brought our own agriculture team. We have at present close to 40 extension officers working in the field, at which our growers knows very well that we are all over the Ogun State. And from then we started working on this one. So we started facing a lot of challenges during the thing. Yes, first of all, I would like to say Ogun State. I am in this country close to 13 years, more than 13 years. And Ogun State, I have seen a lot of improvement. And Ogun State, a lot of road development has taken place. If you go to 2002, 2003, from Sango, even from Lagos to Abeokuta used to take a lot of time. But now, today I traveled from Lagos to this thing, it took almost only 1 hour, 30 minutes. So previously it used to take close to 3 hours and all that. So that way I thank Ogun State government for slowly improving the structures of Ogun State. The second thing I have found in the Ogun State is a real lifeline for the industry. The real lifeline for the industry is the power. And in Nigeria, the power availability is a major issue. And we found that, because although we had studied various states for setting up our distillery, because there are so many places where the cassava is amply available. But when we looked at the Ogun State, we found that this is the state which is having a lot of agricultural products available, a lot of agricultural land available, and on top of it, it has a gas pipeline running through it. And that gas pipeline becomes a real lifeline for the industry, because once you have your own power, now today we have our own power house, we are producing our own electricity, we are producing our own steam at a very cheaper rates. And that becomes a real lifeline for this thing. So setting up the distillery in Ogun State, yes, we took a right decision for starting it up. But when we started our distillery, we started our trial production somewhere last year. The first challenges we found was the prices went up drastically high. So we found that there is no pricing mechanism in this country for the agricultural produce. In 2000, I will give you an example, in 2012, the prices crashed down to 4,000 to 3,000 naira per ton. And which was not good for the farmers, because it was not even, the farmers were not ready to even uproot the cassava because it was not good for the farmers. Even their cost of uprooting was more than what they were supposed to get it. So all of the crop remained in that one. Last year we found that the prices went up because of so many scarcities in the market. Prices went up to 23,000 naira per ton from 4,000 naira, which became very difficult for the industry to work. Because now industry cannot, now farmers will be very happy to take out the product, but industry will be it will be very difficult for the industry to cope up with that much of the price. So this is on the pricing mechanism. Definitely I would like the governments, like the other countries, they have for agri products, there will be a benchmarking for the agri product, so that it's a win-win situation for the industry as well as for the farmers. Farmers don't lose, industries don't lose on that. The second challenge is, which we have found, is the culture here. As rightly everybody is saying, the culture here is that farmers do not want to use fertilizers and insecticides. They say if it is an eating item, it's not good to use a fertilizer and all that thing. But without fertilizer, you can't get the productivity. Here we are getting close to 13 tons or 14 tons of productivity per hectare. Whereas if we visited to Thailand and other places, on an average 40 to 50 tons they are getting it. We did our own trial productions, because since 2005 or 2006 we are doing the farming. We have done that, and we have achieved up to 25 tons in our farms. Yes, we are promoting, our extension officers are there in the fields, we are promoting that. A lot of farmers are taking interest in that. And as proudly I can say, today we have close to 3,000 farmers under our contract farming. And almost 10,000 acres of land, it is under our contract farming at various places. So farmers are reciprocating, but they are not getting the supports which they needed from the government. Industry cannot give a full support. Yes, industry did a full support once. We did 2007. We supplied some fertilizers to the farmers. We supplied some insecticide machines, insecticide to the farmers, on the basis that they will, once they start producing and start giving us the thing. it will come back to us. But naturally, because of financial conditions and other things, it did not come back to us. That's the difference. So the second one which we found is then we approached the banks. The banks also, the procedure for the farmer is so long that we found that by the time the bank is approving for, say, cultivation, the money required for cultivation, actually the time for uprooting has come. So naturally the government has to think on these issues. The another one we are facing is the transportation business. Nigeria we don't have a good transportation business. Most of the farmer is using any private transport. We have found most of the time the truck gets stuck somewhere on the way. And it's a perishable item. Agric is a perishable item. That man has loaded close to 30 tons of cassava. And it has stopped on the way. It remained on the way for almost 2 days. Once he reaches to our factory, it is already totally rotten cassava. Now it becomes an issue. If I take rotten cassava, I lose. If I don't take rotten cassava, where that farmer will go with 30 tons, because there is no bulk market in Nigeria at present. There is no such market in that place. So we have to compromise in between if I need the farmer. So naturally this is another challenges we are facing during the thing. Road networks, transportation, okay. Then another challenge is we have seen, okay, IITA is developing, we are working with the IITAs closely. They have developed so many seeds and all that. But distribution becomes an issue. They have developed, but it doesn't reach to the farmers. So we must find out a way so that it actually reaches to the farmers. So these are the small challenges which we are facing. So I just wanted to highlight all these things. I want Ogun State government to please look into these challenges.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing very practical experiences, Mr. Anurag. I think that you reiterated Jite's point about the broken value chain. And when the value chain is broken, no one benefits. So thank you for highlighting all of those critical issues. Last but not the least, we have Asuko. And you have a fantastic vantage point. With IFAD, you've seen the country in its entirety, and you work with smallholder farmers, especially women, across Nigeria. What are some key best practices you've seen to address all of the challenges that both Mr. Anurag and Pastor have raised that are limiting smallholder farmers from really achieving their highest potential?
Thank you very much, Ndidi. Actually, as the International Fund for Agricultural Development, we work in different parts of the country. And the secret of success that we've seen is that really implementation differs between states. The states that are successful are the ones that there is a political will, there's commitment, there's planning, and as Dr. Yunkela said, it's all about execution, execution, execution. And that's why we think that this investor forum, Your Excellency, is so important, because it highlights the commitment of the people of Ogun, it highlights the commitment of the state government. So I think the political commitment is very much shown, and it really is a key to success of all our projects. And it's for IFAD, it's not just about talking, but we'd like to also highlight that we'd like to talk about investing. And we plan to invest 2 billion naira in Ogun State in the next 5 years for smallholder farmers and women. So, Baba Obasanjo, it won't be for renowned farmers and the world's most famous farmer. However, we will be working with the smallholder farmers in Ogun State, and it will be around the following best practices, highlighted by the members here. Farmers' organizations. Training through farmers' organization is so important. If you can find one lead farmer, he will train 10 other farmers. So it's really about starting with the farmers' organizations. Linking research to extension. In this country, in Ogun State, you have an ADB system. The ADP tends to be severely underfunded, but we need to link research to extension. Number 3, access to finance. At the federal level, we talk about NIRSAL, but NIRSAL is not going to help smallholder farmers. It's microfinance. It's the microfinance banks, the financial NGOs, and the financial cooperatives. And I also saw somewhere the MD of the Bank of Agriculture. The Bank of Agriculture. These are the solutions that will take us to the promised land for access to finance for the 80% of your population, which is smallholder. With regards to land preparation, this is an incredible opportunity for young people to have equipment leasing models. We can link to the farmers' organizations equipment leasing models or service cells, whereby equipment can be used to be leased to these groups. Finally, we had an intervention by the industrialists. In Ogun State, 90% of cassava production is used for gari and fufu, the wet cassava value chain. Only 10% goes to the industrial, starch, flour, and we hope one day to glucose and ethanol. So we'd really like to see the transformation of these value chains so that we can link smallholder farmers and their production to more of these new value chains that are coming up. So we hope that with the commitment, the strong commitment of this state government in Ogun, that we can continue to develop smallholder farmers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Asuka. Very succinct, but very powerful interventions. Just one last question before I open it up for Q&A. And I told Dr. Yumkela I was going to come to him. I'm a co-founder of an agribusiness in Ogun State. We're in Sangota. And what we found through our work is that 90% of the processed food eaten in Nigeria is imported. So you have this broken link that Jite talked about. Farmers are working so hard to grow this food, but it's not getting on our tables. Something is happening along the chain. What can we do to ensure that we eat more of the processed food we grow in this country? What role can SMEs play in linking up to farmers so that we can process food for Nigerians and stop sending our foreign exchange abroad?
Well, first of all, I think your Minister of Agriculture, His Excellency Adishina, together with UNIDO, are already beginning to address that with these food processing zones. That's going to be crucial. That is an effort to demarcate a certain industrial area where you provide all services to encourage food processing, which allows those entrepreneurs then to link to the outgrowers. I think that's an important initiative by your government. I was in their presentation 10 days ago at the World Economic Forum, so I think that's a beginning, but that can be scaled up. I mean, one processing zone is not enough in Ogun State if you want to get closer to the producers. Second, I think some of the ideas on cooperatives is going to be crucial. Millions of smallholder farmers, fragmented, distributed around the country is a complication. How do you organize collection systems to make sure, as the ethanol producer was saying, they need on-time delivery? How do you organize farmers with the support of state and federal government to help them with the collections so that they can deliver on time? Standardization is going to be crucial. Factories, I mean, one of my work here back in 2000, 2003 with IITA, we looked at the cassava value chain. At that time, Baba used to organize those special Saturday forums on cotton cassava. I was a member of some of those panels. One of the key bottlenecks for cassava, this guy needs within 24 hours to make a decision whether he goes starch, ethanol, or flour. 24 hours. Otherwise, the cassava changes.
Wasted.
Flash dryer was an important bottleneck in that value chain. So along the value chain and supply chain, we need to look at what are the barriers and bottlenecks. How can government policy, government intervention remove those barriers? In fact, that is my key message. Government being the facilitator of barrier removal. Food processing is complicated. Another point I'll make is sanitation and hygiene. Again, I emphasize 30 million Nigerians in Lagos by 2030 or 35 or 2040. You want to make sure that the food getting into that value chain or that supply system has the right standards and the hygiene. Otherwise, you're going to run into problems again with contamination and all kinds of problems. So Government as a facilitator in removing these barriers and regulating markets better will help the food industry here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So it's now time for question and answers. Please write down your questions and pass them to the ushers. And if you've already done so, we'll take them one after the other. Direct your questions to particular members of the panel. The first question states, how will IFAD assist in establishing packaging centers for women at farm sites? And I think that's directed at you, Atuka.
Thank you, Ndidi. Actually, thank you very much for this question. As part of the 2 billion naira fund that we would like for Ogun State, an important part of it is market infrastructure. So I think that it was roughly about 40% of the funds that we're looking at market infrastructure, and that will include aggregation, packaging, storaging, and of course, this will be targeted specifically, if possible, at women's groups. We know that women are very much engaged in production, post-harvest, and processing, so we hope that these funds can be utilized.
Okay. Second question, sustainable energy requires capital, and this is a challenge for SMEs and the low-income earners. What strategies can be employed to bridge the gap? I think this is directed at you, Dr. Yumkela, unless someone else on the panel is an energy expert. Anyone else?
Yesterday, Father Zamoja talked about decentralized distributive production centers. In the middle of all of those, you need an energy source. And so here we strongly advocate even the use of biomass. What Father Jamoja is doing in Benin, I mean, he knows we have taken people there. We were trying to replicate that here in Nigeria. So, and it's a model that is similar to China. In the village enterprise model in China, and there were millions of them across China, each of them had an energy source. Whether it's a small stream trying to generate power, or they were using the waste to generate power. Of course, that kind of decentralized model has its own challenges on financing. We're trying to address now that under Sustainable Energy for All to see how we develop a project development facility. There are many social entrepreneurs, including in Nigeria, who are beginning now to become energy entrepreneurs. These are not the big 1 megawatt, 10 megawatt groups. These are small entities that are looking at 1 megawatt community energy service. That's going to be crucial. I know IFAD started distributing solar power to communities as part of their projects in the north. That again, I think, Governor, is going to be an important part, particularly for the women. It is the women who process that gari. The men may do a little bit of heavy lifting, but the women do the frying. So how do you support that with energy systems generated in the community? There are many models in India for bioenergy systems from using agricultural waste. But again, that requires some degree of financing going forward.
Thank you very much. Okay, and our third question for Pastor Adewumi. What are the key programs of the Cassava Grower Association, apart from land clearing, that supports small growers?
Thank you. We have a very solid program. For instance, we have a program for the youth. The situation is this. We intend to give 10 hectares to every identified youth. That we are thinking at the production rate of 30 tons per hectare, it will have 300 hectares. And then, like in Ogun State, if we have 5,000 hectares, you know what that translates to. And the cost of production will come down because it will be a mechanized system. The clearing is all we need. Financing is our business. This is how we want to do it. We are forming a tripartite program between the processor, who are the off-takers, and the bank and the farmers. The farmers produce, then the supply to the processor, and the bank finances. Now, when payment is to be made, it's not made to the farmer. It's made directly to the bank. So the profit of the farmer is worked out and paid to him. In Cassava Grower, we have made arrangement that every such youth, we will finance them by giving them allowance of between 10 to 15,000 naira monthly, the total of which we are going to deduct from the proceed of their product. So it's such, and it has started. So it is now for the off-takers to take advantage of that, to bring the price. Because if the price remains 20,000, 18,000, they will not find market on the long run, and their business cannot prosper. and it's not in our interest. So what we, in particular, Ogun State, being the forefront, having processor in all areas, distiller is here, glucose syrup from Ekagro is here, the biggest and the only viable flour producing company is here in Ogun State. And we still have other people. So we think the government can take this advantage to empower the people that will empower the state. We are looking at 500. Recently, I met the ADP. I wanted to give them loan for 125 farmers. But they don't have the land to take it. Need please pay. 125 farmers at 4 hectares. We rack our brain. They couldn't get enough land to support that. But I know with this forum, the government will take a bold step and make available finance to do 1,000 hectares, which will bring 4,000 from the federal government to join. And we can tell you, if this turn as a commercial enterprise, not through the bureaucracy of the government system, it can be achieved within 3 months. So we have different other programs. Now to the smallholder farmers, we are giving them between 2 to 4 hectares. The fund is available. This is how the funding can be. Right now for flour millers, we have with us already through the BOA 81,000 for 1 hectare. And we are ready to give between 2 to 4 hectares to each farmer that is qualified. But this time it's not a fake system. We will go to the farm, to GPS, measure the farm, do everything. So what is left is just about 40,000, which the bank can mitigate with the guarantee of taking from the processing farm. So the situation has been mapped out. The cassava growth today is different from what it used to be. You used to hear of a faction, that one has been closed. Everybody has withdrawn, and we are together, and everything is working well.
Okay. I appreciate your passion. Everybody who is a cassava farmer is going to be lining up to hear more about how they can take advantage of the funds.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And I think this is one of our last questions for Notori. How many distributors and retailers does Notori have in Ogun State?
Well, the way Notori is structured, we have about 90 distributors nationwide. And we don't have specific distributors now per state. We have per series of states. In this area, and we're now moving closer towards what we now want to call our super dealership structure, because we believe that in terms of actually distributing fertilizers efficiently and effectively, we want to consolidate our super dealership structure to have no more than about 6 for the entire country, so they can have the capacity, to actually hold stock, especially during the off seasons, which is a big challenge that we're having, and then improve and grow our retail network to be much wider and deeper into the market. For this area, I think we have 1 dealer right now, but I think our ultimate goal, especially because of the importance of Ogun State, especially in the agricultural sphere, is to maybe actually have the super dealer for this state region, okay, to probably actually be based here. Because Ogun State clearly is one of the states that is actually showing very strong signs in actually moving their cultural policy far ahead. But what you will see in the next 2 to 3 years is you will see a retail network, okay, that will be literally everywhere, close to the farmlands, not only carrying fertilizers, but also carrying seed. There's 2 seeds we're concentrating on right now is rice and maize. Okay, so that's basically the structure. So we'll continue to deepen our retail network to achieve the objectives of creating fertilizers availability across the state.
Thank you so much. So I believe we're unfortunately out of time. We have some more questions which we cannot take at this time. So just to round up, I'd like to thank our distinguished speaker, Dr. Yumkela, and this very distinguished group of panelists. My favorite African quote and African proverb states, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And I think Ogun State has committed to going with others. The private sector, civil society, international development agencies, research institutions, of course, the farmers themselves. Collectively, I think we can transform agribusiness in Ogun State and in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's quickly have a photography session with the state governor. Quickly do that. And after that, we of course have some gifts to give. Could I please ask members of the audience not to leave their seats? Stay within here. We just have one more plenary to go. And we seem to have left, what we did is, I think we left the best for last. If you're looking for investors, what we have coming up for you right now are the investors who will back your product. And you want to hear what they want to talk about. Most of our panelists, the moderator, are of course captains of the banking industry. Banks which are specifically designated to assist people with projects in agriculture and urban development. That is the final plenary for the evening. So please remain seated while we quickly get our set prepared and invite our panel. That will be for